God is in service. That's our theme for this workshop, and I'm glad that you're here because, to be honest with you, as I kind of alluded, in our society, we need more people that are living their faith. And we live that truly by going to Mass, receiving the sacraments, all those great things. But we also live it when you and I are willing to be of service to one another. When you think about the life of Jesus, everything Jesus did was really about service. He would go out and he would be with people that nobody else wanted to be with. And he would take care of them. He would love them. He would nurture them. He would strengthen them with his love. And Jesus had the power to heal and raise people from the dead and all those wonderful things. And, we might not be able to have those same characteristics. We might not be able to heal anybody or raise anybody from the dead. But the one thing that we can do is love them. And that is so powerful. We can never underestimate the fact that you and I are called to love. And in doing that, we are serving our brothers and sisters. But if we're going to be true disciples, true vessels of God, we have to be people of service, because that is where God is. When I went to seminary, I went to Mount St. Mary's University in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And one of my jobs was, the Mount was a Division I, athletic school, and so I was assigned to be the chaplain to the university baseball team. And baseball players are a different breed. Good guys, great guys. I spent 4 years with them. I loved them. But we would go on. I'd go on all the road trips and all this stuff. But they kind of said to me one day, they were like, we should really do something that's like purposeful, that has meaning. And I said, no, that's great. So I went online and I was talking with different people, and so finally we discovered that we could take like a semester, not a semester, but a month in a semester. We had, a couple weeks break, and then the school was going to give us a couple weeks. So for a month, we went to Kingston, Jamaica. Now, Kingston, Jamaica is a very different place, because part of it, if you ever go on a cruise, you're going to see this really resortful kind of place. The water's beautiful, and these beautiful hotels. And then just beyond that is a landfill. And people live on that landfill. And that landfill is a dump. It's just trash, years of trash. People live on that. They go through the landfill every day to get their food. They eat people's trash. They live in these little metal huts. And so there's a whole section of Kingston, Jamaica that's like that. So we were going to be in that section of Kingston, Jamaica. So, we had to raise a bunch of money because we had to fly down there. And then for months we collected soap, toothpaste, things that people could use. So it's time, get on the plane. I have like 20 guys with me. We head down. Get to the airport. And we're all taken away and pulled aside into a room. And it's the Airport Authority Police of Jamaica. And we had these massive tubs, like those plastic crates. We probably had like 10 of those, filled with all that stuff that we collected. We were like feeling great, We're going to bring all this stuff. People are going to love us because we're bringing them all this stuff. They said, we're taking all of that away from you. We don't want the poor to have that. We're going to take it. So the government officials took all of our stuff. And they even went through our bags. And if there was anything that they thought we could give away, they took that too. So I didn't know a whole lot about this, but I came to learn that the government was pretty corrupt, and in poor people, they were able to find people to basically be their gangs. So they wanted this. The government wanted this poverty because then they could offer people jobs as gang members to do all of this corrupt stuff. It's really bizarre. So when we went, all of a sudden now I've got six big guys came out and they said, by the way, we're your bodyguards. They met us outside when we were getting into these vans. I said, bodyguards? I'm like, if their parents knew what they're going through right now, I don't think we'd be here. And they said, oh yeah. They said, because the priest that's doing all of the good work, the government has 6 death threats on his life. The government wants him dead because he's helping people get out of their poverty. And the government wants him dead. And this is the priest we're going to work for. So now I'm feeling really safe. So we get in these vans, we head to this, we stayed in a convent, bunch of nuns, and started what we were doing, and I said, well, we got to be safe, and I was promised that we'd be safe. We were told, once it starts getting dark, you got to come inside, because we would hear gunshots, we would hear so much at night, and they showed us what we were going to do. We were going to build a school. In 4 weeks, we were going to build a school, and we were going to visit a house full of lepers, and we were going to visit a house of people dying from HIV/AIDS. And we were going to minister to them, we were going to love them, and we were going to build a school. So I said, we can't do everything, but we can start there. So we, every day, would go. Now, I don't know about you, maybe I'm naive, but I didn't think leprosy existed anymore. We hear about it in the Bible, but leprosy exists. People die from it still. And I would just, I'd send half of them to the AIDS clinic, I'd send half of them to the leprosy house, and I'd send another group, if we had time to help with the school, and then eventually we'd all work on the school, and, our days were long. But over time, as I was watching, these guys were being changed. Their lives were being changed. These 20 baseball players. Being changed forever. Because they were helping people that absolutely were complete strangers. There was nothing they were going to get from this, by the way. They weren't going to get any reward or any acknowledgement. And they were going to help these people that they'll never see again. And they would see people suffering. They would see people dying. There was times that we'd go to the place one day and the next day some people had died. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I'd watch their lives change. And again, just almost like I talked to you about that firefighter earlier, I'd go down to the chapel and a lot of these guys would be really in tears, just agonizing over what they had just seen. Seeing the pain and suffering of people. And when we went out to that landfill and we visited people's huts, there would be 10 people living in a hut that was maybe like from here to here and from here to here. And they'd be living in this thing. And it would just be built out of rotten metal. That's what they lived in. And we were a sign of hope. We were a sign of people that cared. We didn't have all of the resources we thought we were going to have, We thought we'd be every day distributing shampoo and soap and all. We had nothing. The only thing we had was our words, our faith, and our hearts. That's all we had to work with. Our words, our faith, and our hearts. We could talk to them, love them, and share our faith with them. And of those 10 baseball players, 10 of them were not, of the 20, 10 of them were not Catholic. 10 of them had no religion. So I was kind of teaching them a little bit about it. That Easter, they all became Catholic. They all became Catholic because they found meaning in the Catholic Church, and it was the faith part that they would watch their other teammates talk about faith, and they were like, I want that. Because that's the only thing that's going to help me get through this right now. 3 of us, this is going to be a horrible story, but it's a little graphic. 3 of us got very sick, and I was one of them. Because obviously when you're in that much filth and disease-infested area, I caught this infection and almost kind of went unconscious, really. And all I can remember is I was in this hospital. I don't even know if you want to call it that. And I was waiting to be taken care of, and I would just remember how much pain I was in. And then this other guy had come in that had fallen off his roof and had severed like most of his fingers. And a nurse worked on him, and she came over to me with all of his blood on her hands. And she put an IV into my arm. I can remember that, but I was so sick I didn't care. And I was sitting there saying, I don't even know what's going on. And so even the sanitary things were just not there. It was amazing. After a month, we had to throw away all of our clothes, by the way. Nothing we could keep. I couldn't get them into that van to go to the airport. They would have stayed there for another month. It was so hard for them to leave because we didn't bring anything. We didn't change anyone. They changed us. They were poor. They had diseases that were uncontrollable. Thank God I got better. They didn't have anything to give us financially or of value. But they changed us. They changed me. I really say I'm a better priest because of that time in Kingston, Jamaica. I really empathize with people more than I ever have. I'm a better man, I'm a better priest, I'm a better person because I was able to give the gospel freely. I was able to love, and I received their love back, and it changed me forever. Now, most of you are never going to go on a mission trip. If you ever have the opportunity, please do. Some of you may have work at a soup kitchen someday. Great. Maybe you'll have an opportunity to do some type of outreach. Do it. Because in the gospel, Jesus tells us to love just like that. To go after those that have not been loved. To seek the person that needs our hearts the most. And I can guarantee you it's never going to be pretty. It's never going to be convenient. It's never going to be a perfect moment. But you will be changed because of it. When we give of ourselves, when we serve one another, when we serve the brothers and sisters who need us the most, we are serving Christ in our midst. Mother Teresa, who, if you've never really heard much about her story, that's what she did. She would go to the slums of her country, and she would pick up those that nobody else cared about. People that were thrown to the wayside because they were disease infested, because nobody wanted them. She found them and she loved them. Will you do the same? God is service. Because when you and I receive the Eucharist, when we receive the sacraments, that gives us all we need to bring him to the world that needs him so much. And then, in being a person of service that's rooted in faith, that's rooted in God, you are going to find meaning for your life. You're going to be able to connect it all together. Because you know what? God didn't just come here to rest with the comfortable. He didn't come here to make things all pretty, but He is in the poor. He's in those that need our service. He's in those that need our love, that need our hearts, that need our faith. You don't have to have money. You don't have to have material goods. You don't have to distribute a bunch of sanitary products. You don't need any of that. But what you do need is a heart of faith, a heart of love, and a heart of service. A heart of faith, a heart of love, and a heart of service. That's all you need. And God will change you and change the people that you serve. My parish that I'm in now is a very wealthy parish. Extremely wealthy. And when I got there, I said, we've got to do a better job of our outreach to the poor. And for us, that's minimal, really. I have to be honest with you. I'm almost embarrassed. People might come for a gas card or for a food card, and that's all we do. But I remember at the Finance Council meeting, somebody said, Father, what's all this money that we're spending for these poor people? We've never done that before, and why are we doing it? I'm saying to myself, people just don't have a clue. We're giving gas cards and food cards. We're not walking on water here. We're not doing amazing things here. Because things are removed from us, we don't see it. I think sometimes it's easy just to be comfortable where we are. Really, I believe that. I don't know what your family life is like. I don't know what you've had to be exposed to as, maybe some of you grew up in poor homes and you dealt with welfare or whatever. Maybe you didn't know, if you were going to eat a meal that night, whatever. Maybe some of you have never even experienced that. But there are people that need you. There are people that need your love. There are people that need your service. They need your heart. And they need our Catholic faith. And of course, let's just think about Pope Francis. I mean, if there's one pope that is leading us to this, it is him. Our Holy Father is showing us by his example that we have to be people of service. I was watching a video of our Holy Father. I thought it was great. You see these because, he's a pretty important guy. So you see all of these limousines driving by. And the Pope, the Pope was at some meeting or something. And so you're thinking like, well, the Pope's in one of those limousines. Then a little blue Ford Focus drives by, and he gets out of that. And there are like limos behind him. And he gets out and he embraces this person on the stretcher. And he gets back into the Ford Focus that doesn't have air conditioning, that his knees are up to his neck. He lives it. He lives it. And I'm not saying that, we have to live in poverty to understand it, but that man's authentic. He's not preaching something that he's not going to do first. And I guess maybe that's what I'm asking you to do. Is let's preach something that you and I are willing to try. Let's be willing to be the disciples that Jesus has called us to, and not only be his disciples, but be his disciples in word and action. And to serve those that are the hardest to love. Because they're dirty. Because they smell. Because they're not popular. Because they have no friends. Because they're unwanted. Because they're not you. There are people in your schools that struggle every day because you don't say hi. Because you don't say hi. Do you know how difficult that is? There are people that go home because of what they experience at school, and they don't want to go back. They don't want to go back. Because, and I know the word bullying is used a lot, but it exists. And I don't think there's one person in this room that could deny that. It exists, and it's horrific, and it's deadly. People have killed themselves. That's not a heart of service. That's not believing in a God of service. Even if you don't like that person, we don't have to treat them like dirt. Even if we don't like somebody, even if they're not our friends, we don't have to ignore them. Nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves to be ignored, forgotten, or left behind. And if you have had that happen, change it. Speak up about it. And if you do that, stop. Please. And I'm very blessed to have a high school. And there was a student this year, junior, who was vicious. He was a star athlete. Our football program wouldn't have been as successful if it wasn't for him. But he was so brutal to people. So I would get these calls from parents saying, this student is doing X, Y, and Z. What are you going to do about it? So I met with the student's parents. I said, you got to do something with your son. And we were in the middle of building a new high school. The parents slid a check across my desk. I said, what's that for? They said, that's to keep our son here. And I ripped it up right in front of them. I said, your son's a disease, and I don't want him here. He's expelled today. Get him out of here. Disease. Was that the most popular thing? I still get letters about it today. We're not going to win next year, Father. We'll figure it out. But I'm not going to let anyone else be verbally abused because I ignored it. That's the other tragedy. You can't ignore. All of us see bad things happen all the time. It's easy to look the other way. Please don't. Please be Jesus Christ in that moment. I love the gospel story, of the Good Samaritan. And he brings this person. Priest walks by, ignores. Levite walks by, ignores. But yet, somebody in their heart cannot ignore somebody that needs help. Brings them to a place, pays for their lodging, checks in on them the next day to make sure they're okay. We all have the ability not to ignore. So please don't. My brothers and sisters, our faith has to be lived. Our faith has to be proclaimed. Our faith has to be so real that you and I are willing to stand up for it, regardless of the cost, regardless of how much we're going to be ridiculed. Will you stand up for your Catholic faith? that Jesus gave to you. Jesus would never ignore you. Jesus would never walk away from you when you are in need. Please don't do it to someone else. Jesus would never forget about you. Jesus would never leave you to suffer. Please don't do it to anyone else. The church needs you. The church needs you to be that hope, that light, that joy, that example to each other and to those that are hurting. But it takes a heart of service. You've got to believe it. You know, it's said so many times, it's almost ignored. St. Francis's comment, preach the gospel always, if necessary, use words. Preach the gospel always. If necessary, use words. Your actions will proclaim your faith and your love and your heart. You know, the other thing that I certainly want to encourage you is, St. Therese, when after Mass is over, the Eucharist is put into what we call a ciborium, and then the ciborium is placed in the tabernacle. She had a great quote. She said, Jesus did not come down to live in a golden ciborium in a tabernacle, but he came to live in a tabernacle more dearer to him, the tabernacle of your soul. He didn't come to live in a golden ciborium, but he came to live in a tabernacle that was more dear to him, and that is the tabernacle of your soul. So the next time when you feel like you don't love somebody, or you want to be vicious to them, or bully them, or ignore them, don't forget Jesus is in that soul. Don't forget Jesus is in there. So we're not only hurting that person, but we're hurting Jesus. Every one of us is made in the image and likeness of God. Doesn't that deserve respect by itself? We need men and women to rise up and to love radically, to be people of service, even when it hurts, even when it's not comfortable, even when it's foreign or strange, or even for a stranger. We need that. In my priesthood, I have not done it always well. I'm very ashamed to even say that. There are people that have come for help, and I did not respond as generously as I should have. And I'll always regret that. But I won't do it again. You know, Gandhi, how many of you have heard of Gandhi? I love this quote. You know, he did a lot of good things, right? He was a very powerful leader. And somebody said, you have all these Christian values. Why don't you become a Christian? You know what he said? Because I haven't met one yet. I haven't met one yet. When people see you, I believe they're going to see Christ. Even if you weren't that way when you came here, leave that way. Leave changed. Become a better person. Love more radically. Serve more radically. And may we have hearts of faith, hearts of service, hearts of love. And Jesus will use that. He needs you. He needs you. The church needs you. You need each other. Take care of each other. And I promise you'll be happy. You'll find fulfillment. And in fact, you won't even want to stop. You'll be a better person because Christ demands it. Christ demands this of us. And that's a God of service. Any questions? Any questions? Nobody? Do you have a question? I'm not a rapper. I wish I was. He lied to you. Brian lied to you. You tell him that. Tell him that. When we get back, you say, you need to go to confession. You wouldn't want to hear me rap. Yes. I couldn't hear you. What's that? The priest that has the what? Yes, he is. The priest that has the death threat, very much alive. They have tried several times. They destroyed his house once when he was away, but still doing ministry. Yes, government still very corrupt. Very corrupt. And in a sense, I don't want to say this too crassly, but they even have a hardship against Americans because we loaned them a lot of money at one point, and we're now collecting that money. So I think so much, it's like 60% of whatever they bring in comes back to the United States. So, their poverty is continuing to increase because they're paying back the loan to the United States. So, but the reason why they owe us so much is because the money that we loan them, the government officials just took for themselves. So, just a lot of corruption. It's quite sad. Yes. We did. It's not pretty. The school was finished. It's just a bunch of plywood with a very simple roof. But it's, and this priest, what he does is he teaches trades so that these people don't have to go into gangs. So he has, like a welding shop, and he teaches them how to weld so that they can go off and learn how to open up, like a welding store or whatever. So he has like 6 or 7 different trades that he teaches. Carpentry is one of them, and that's why they want to kill him, because he's getting them off the streets, out of gangs, giving them experienced trade, getting them jobs. That's the Catholic Church doing that. That's your church, saving people's lives. It's awesome. They are, they start as, certainly I would say about the same ages as ours in elementary school, but they really get more in depth as they get into high school, because that's when the government starts looking at people to, corrupt, unfortunately. Yes? No? Yeah, you just heard that's not an uncommon story, and in fact, you would hear more and more about priests that died. Thank God this priest is very much alive, but a lot of priests were killed by governments because of the good work they were doing. Yes? Absolutely. Once a year we get together and we have this massive fundraiser in Washington, D.C. They're all in professions now. They're grown up. I've done many of their weddings. But they're businessmen and business leaders, and we get together and we have a massive fundraiser once a year to raise money for this organization. But we get together the night before and we just continue to process and pray. But even initially when we got back, there was a lot of communication between me and them and myself, just to really show them that this is life changing. We can't fix all of it, but we went down there, we did what we were supposed to do, and we came back and they're better for it, we're better for it, and that's what God had called us to do. But you can't fix everything. The world is still going to have problems. You can't fix everything, but you have to do your part.
Is there everything like what happened to make it to anything in the United States like that or not?
I wouldn't say as corrupt, but there are certainly a lot of places in the United States that need our help. But not as severe. No, I wouldn't think so, because we live in a great country, and we don't have to fear things like some other countries do. But certainly there's a lot of poverty, and there's a lot of people just as in need here, and we are free to do it. That's the best part. We're free to help, but we don't. Yes. I haven't gone back. I can't go back because the infection that I got, I still have. I'll have that the rest of my life. And so if I get near that, it'll probably kill me. So for the rest of my life, I'll live with certainly this disease, but I can't go back for that one reason. Yes.
Why does the government want gangs?
Because it's cheap labor. Gangs can go out. Why does the government want gangs? Because gangs can go out and do government work for really cheap. They can kill people, coerce people, make people's lives miserable. It's great.
On a different note,
Yeah.
how would you say you go about serving your enemies when you don't want to?
How do you go about serving your enemies when you don't want to? What I always say is, whenever I have somebody that I'm struggling with, what is it that I don't like about that person? You have to be honest with yourself. What is it that I don't like about that person? And then do an examination of conscience. And I guarantee what you don't like about that person, you have struggled with or will struggle with. And so then you try your best to love your neighbor. They may not embrace it. They may not welcome it all the time, but you have to try. And it may be just praying for them. How many times can we just stop and just pray for the people that we struggle with? But I think a lot of times the things that we hate about other people are things that we have struggled with ourselves. We relate all too well. But certainly, loving your enemy is a huge part of this. And if you can't break that barrier, then pray for them. Your prayers are going to penetrate their hearts, going to break down that wall a little bit. It's going to do a world of wonders. Prayer changes things, so don't ever forget that.
Can you tell us more about how you're changing the hearts of your affluent parish towards the needy?
Yeah. Well, how do you change the affluent? As I said, I have a very affluent parish that really didn't really see the need of helping the poor. Just keep talking about it. We got to educate, and you have to educate people about the faith, right? I mean, this is what our faith demands of us. So we have to kind of, when we go back, and you have friends that are Catholic, you got to go back and tell them, this is one of the most amazing parts of our Catholic faith is that you and I are called to love and serve and be of service to one another and support one another and take care of one another, especially the poor and those in need and all these great things. Educate, because most of us are, especially in very rich areas, are very blind that, we have a lot, of resources ourselves, but we're just blind to certainly the needs of others. So just make people aware. Awareness is huge. Anything else? Yes. I think they were Dominicans. The Order of Nuns in Jamaica. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they're Dominicans. Yes.
Father, any suggestions for serving fellow Christians who are suffering in the Middle East and in Muslim countries where the threat of violence is very real and can't really maybe do a service project there, but
Right.
what suggestions?
So our brothers and sisters, in the Middle East that are suffering, prayer certainly, when you're at Mass, remember them, because they don't have the same freedoms that you have. A lot of our brothers and sisters in those countries cannot even go to Mass. So I would say just when we're at Mass, when we're experiencing something that we have so freely, pray for them, remember them. But this is really a crisis that's just is more emerging more and more and more, so I think it's something that we have to look at, how we can respond as a universal church, bringing them to us. We got to figure something out. But it's certainly, I always say in situations that because we could get very hopeless, sometimes if we look at the bigger picture and say, there's just so much to do. So many people need us. So many people need our service. So many people need our love. We can only do so much, but when we can't do something, prayer is the answer. Prayer is that beautiful bond that heart speaks to heart in prayer. So you can always bring people and situations in prayer, especially if you cannot help. If there's just nothing you can do. prayer will always change it. Prayer will always change it. A couple more. I think we could just get a couple more minutes, if that. Where? Oh my gosh, you're all the way up there. Can you scream it? What's that? I can't rap. I wish I could rap. I told you, Brian lied. You don't want me to rap. Father Stan can rap. I cannot rap. Yeah, I can't. I don't even know how. I hate rap. I don't even listen to it. That's how much I hate it. Anything else? Moving on. Sailing away. Yes.
Is there any ways that you can get supplies in Jamaica?
I'm sure you can. We just ran into the government. So you can you get, are all places like, would they, if you send stuff, are they hardened to taking supplies? No. I'm sure you can, just that we ran into a roadblock. But made it real for us, when the government took it away from us, it made it pretty real. What else? Yes. No, Jamaica has not been my only mission trip. Certainly, we've done a lot in the United States. That's the one thing is, going to like another country is wonderful, and there are plenty of countries that need us. But right now in our own country, there's plenty of mission opportunities. There are plenty of certainly hospitals. There are plenty of there's even places like certainly soup kitchens. You can't think too big, but right now in our own country there are a million missionary places that we need just to bring God's love and His peace and His joy. But also other countries definitely need it. But if you can't travel, just look outside your front door and you'll find it. Anything else? All right, we're going to pray. So why don't we stand? Loving Father, you have called us to be a people of immense light, to be people of joy in our service and in our hearts, to serve you and the poor, those that are removed from society because of certainly their economic status or difficulties that they've experienced, addictions that they've suffered, whatever it is, Lord. But you've called us to be people of service. You've called us to take the gospel, to take the sacraments and make them real and bring them to a world that needs you. And when they experience that, they're changed. But Lord, we need the grace. We need the grace to go. We need the grace to hear those words, to feed my sheep. Do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Feed my sheep. Do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Feed my sheep. Do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Feed my sheep. May we be willing to take care of our Lord's sheep. May we love with hearts, serve with our hearts, and then people will see hearts of faith. May God bless you, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Thanks for coming, everybody.